Today's show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Change the location of your IP address and bypass region locks at expressvpn.com/inside.
Love it. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Inside Gaming Daily for Tuesday. Let's talk more about the bloodbath that is Doom Eternal, and we're not talking about ripping alien heads off. No, this is much more vicious,
Aliens.
And it's about music. Yeah, they're demons. Wait, who wrote that?
Yeah, they're not
Well, they're
aliens.
alien demons.
Well, they came to Mars because of the pursuit of, what is it, Argon energy?
Argent energy.
Argent energy, yeah. Well, that's just patently wrong.
They're not aliens.
Let me say demons so I could just put it in post. Demon. And we're not talking about ripping demon heads off.
You might remember that we did a story last week about Doom Eternal's composer and how he's really pissed at id Software. Mick Gordon went on a tirade last month, accusing the developer of messing with his work. He also dropped a bombshell saying that he'd probably never work with them again.
You may remember Mick Gordon trampled a coastal town.
He carpet bombed Dallas or wherever.
Definitely unforgettable. Well, it looks like id had enough because now the studio's boss has fired back at Gordon and said, "Yeah, dude, we're done with you too." Spoken like a real PR professional.
Well, he did say it in a very diplomatic way, you're right. It was a polite glory kill. You wine and dine him and then you slit their throat.
And then you rip their spine out and
you rip their
beat them to death with it.
Doom Eternal executive producer Marty.
Moy.
Doom Eternal executive producer Marty Stratton posted an open letter on the subreddit and talked about the controversy surrounding the game's original soundtrack.
Yeah, it was released to the public last month, but when it dropped, people complained that the audio seemed to be compressed and not as dynamic as the soundtrack for Doom 2016, which Gordon, of course, also worked on.
Gordon himself saw the complaints and he got involved. He tweeted, "I didn't mix those and wouldn't have done that. You'll be able to spot the small handful of tracks I mixed." He also wrote about the soundtrack that all those stupid time signature changes are a result of someone from marketing piecing this track together without any musical knowledge.
He can't resist getting into the fray, it seems. It's reported that Mick Gordon was called a chicken at a traffic stop. Oh, and in a DM exchange with a Reddit user, Gordon also said that he doubted that he'd return for another Doom game.
Well, this won't surprise you, but Stratton has a slightly different version of events, but he did agree that id and Bethesda were probably done working with the composer.
Oh no. Stratton broke it all down in pretty extraordinary detail in his open letter to Doom fans.
Just amazing detail.
Unbelievable detail.
Really
the
great
attention pay it is. It's like one of those cityscapes carved into the tusk of an elephant.
Yes.
It's a long read, but it basically boils down to Gordon was not meeting his deadlines. Ooh.
Stratton wrote that while many fans like the soundtrack, there is speculation and criticism around the fact that the game's talented and popular composer, Mick Gordon, edited and mixed only 12 of the 59 tracks on the soundtrack. Holy God. The rest of the tracks, Stratton said, were edited by id's own lead audio designer.
Yeah, Stratton went on to write, "Some have suggested that we've been careless with or disrespectful of the game music. Others have speculated that Mick wasn't given the time or creative freedom to deliver something different or better. The fact is, none of that is true."
Who's lying out here?
So why didn't Gordon do all of the tracks? It sounds like he was brought in relatively late in the process. Doom Eternal was announced at E3 2018, then in the next E3 in 2019, they announced that the game's soundtrack would be included with the Collector's Edition, but Gordon wasn't under contract to work on the soundtrack at that point.
Stratton said that the studio has had a complicated relationship with Gordon. He added, "Our challenges have never been a matter of creative differences. Mick has had near limitless creative autonomy over music composition and mixing in our recent Doom games, and I think the results have been tremendous." Yeah, I mean, the 2016 soundtrack was hailed as a masterpiece, so, it makes sense that they'd want to bring him back, and the music owns. It's really f***ing cool.
And they finally did. They hired Gordon in January with an agreement to deliver 12 tracks by early March, but then things went real bad, which we'll talk about in a second, but you know what else is pretty awful? Going bald. Unless you're into that. But if you're not, you should check out our sponsor for today's episode, which is Keeps.
I've been spending my whole life trying to get that monk top bald bowl cut. It's the only haircut acceptable to get you into the gates of heaven.
That is a good one.
It's a pious do.
Yeah.
It's a pious do, yes. Today's episode of Inside Gaming Daily is brought to you by Keeps. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/inside to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's KEEPS.com/inside. 2 out of 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. Ugh. Good news? Well, with today's advancements in science, Keeps offers proven treatments that can combat the symptoms of hair loss and help you keep the hair you have at half the cost of your local pharmacy. That's what I'm talking about. You don't have to go broke to avoid going bald. Yeah, no, Keeps offers generic versions of the only 2 FDA-approved hair loss products out there. Some of you may have tried them before, but probably never for this price. No. Prevention is key. Keeps treatments really work. They are up to 90% effective at reducing and stopping further hair loss. The sooner you start using Keeps, the more hair you'll save. Simple as that. So act fast. Many men even experience hair regrowth with Keeps treatments. Keeps has revolutionized the way that men are treated for hair loss. Thanks to Keeps, you can no longer have to go to your doctor's office, for your hair loss prescription. Now you can just, visit a doctor online and get your hair loss medication delivered to your home. Great for a time of quarantine. No more waiting rooms, no more pharmacy checkout lines. Get doctor attention and discreet drug delivery, all from the comfort and privacy of your own home. Find out why Keeps has more 5-star reviews than any of its competitors, and nearly 100,000 men trust Keeps for their own hair loss medication. For a limited time, you can get your first month free. That's one heck of a deal. I don't want to lose this, and neither do you. So anyways, if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/inside to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's KEEPS.com/inside.
My favorite is the bald on top, but ponytail.
Oh,
with
yeah.
the side hair,
Or
but full ponytail.
Who's the action star?
So when id hired Gordon once more for Doom Eternal, Stratton said that Gordon was given complete creative control over what he delivers.
But then Gordon started asking for more time. In February, he asked for 4 more weeks. The bastard. It ultimately gave him a 6-week extension, with the final deadline being mid-April. Keep in mind that the game was released March 20th.
All right, keeping that in mind. Go on.
Stratton said that in early March they announced that the soundtrack component in the collector's edition was delayed and would not be available as originally intended. At this point, Stratton also said id was mindful about consumer protection laws in some countries that would allow customers to demand a full refund if a product did not meet its availability date.
But he added, even with that, the mid-April delivery would allow us to meet our commitments to customers while also allowing Mick the time he had ideally requested.
By the beginning of April, though, id was starting to get nervous that Gordon might not meet the new deadline. So, as a contingency plan, Stratton said that he asked id Software's lead audio engineer, Chad Mossholder, to begin work on versions of Gordon's tracks.
God, I love Chad Mossholder.
I like Moss Shoulder.
Are you guys not giant moss heads?
Oh, I'm a Moss head.
I'm always facing north, baby.
As for some of the tracks in the soundtrack being lower quality, Stratton said that mixing together an original soundtrack usually involves using source material. But since only Gordon had access to that, Mossholder had to mix the in-game tracks instead. Jesus. Which explains that compression that people noticed.
That actually makes a ton of sense.
No, I know, but I'm like, why would they release that?
Hey, we're gonna have to mix pre-compressed tracks into another pre-compressed soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as the deadline drew near, Gordon suggested to id that they use some of Mossholder's arrangements to fill out the soundtrack beyond the 12 songs.
But what happened when the deadline finally arrived?
Stratton said that Gordon still wasn't done with his tracks. He ultimately delivered 2 final tracks for the soundtrack, and the rest was a combined effort between Gordon and Mossholder.
Are you owed compensation by your place of work? Gordon and Mossholder are here for you.
Stratton wrote Gordon communicated that he wasn't particularly happy with some of the edits on the id tracks. I understand this from an artist's perspective and realize this opinion is what prompted him to distance from the work in the first place. That said, from our perspective, we didn't want to be involved in the content of the OST and did absolutely nothing to prevent him from delivering on his commitments within the time frame he asked for, and we extended multiple times. Basically, we know he's mad, but this is kinda his own fault. Got him.
So there you go. Gordon was contracted to compose a dozen tracks for Doom Eternal, and he delivered 2. The rest of the tracks were done in-house, but since they didn't have access to the source material, they didn't sound as good.
Stratton finished up by praising Gordon's talent, but added, as for the immediate future, we are at the point of moving on and won't be working with Mick on the DLC we currently have in production. As I've mentioned, his music is incredible. He's a rare talent, and I hope he wins many awards for his contributions to Doom Eternal at the end of the year. Like we said, this was a remarkably candid and detailed summary of the situation from id, and it's something you don't see very often. The detail was just unbelievable. It was really stupendous detail.
It felt like I was there.
Felt like I was truly in hell.
With aliens.
No.
And the fans on the subreddit seem to appreciate Stratton's candor about the whole ordeal. Now, in Gordon's defense, he's obviously a highly creative type, and that doesn't always work on deadline. And again, boo-hoo. Video games always have a mixture of art and business, and if you're the boss, you got to make sure that deadlines are met, otherwise you're stuck with Star Citizen.
The greatest game ever made. You can be the biggest genius in the world, but if you don't get your work in on time, it ultimately doesn't matter because nobody's gonna hear it. And then maybe don't, paint yourself as a victim. Throw a bunch of people under the bus if you're f***ing up. It's just, come on, be cool.
If you're the reason that it sounds the way it does, maybe
Yeah, just be cool,
Just chill, Mick, okay?
Just be a homie.
Just chill your biscuits, buddy.
Just, hang out.
It's gonna be fine.
Get a sourdough starter.
Shave your soul patch.
Shave the soul patch.
It would
It's
ruin
so
the music.
crazy. It's like a line. It's like a Sharpie.
I have a pencil here. Right?
Yep.
I just think the music is bad and it's not my fault. Hold on, guys. Are we doing a musical? Are we all about to start singing? Is this finally happening? Connor starts singing but is quickly cut off with an edit.
You heard that right, everybody. We've got some hot and spicy music drama to talk about.